Sweet. I get to go first. Seth.
Aaron. Lyndon.
Sorry.
And you got to clap.
Oh, my bad.
There you go. We're gonna.
Aaron,
give
do you
that
have all the footage of everyone doing their clap? All the guests we have. Can you please put together a reel?
But we should do like the Barstool Sports, like how he rates pizzas, like
Yeah.
that one.
Like
was,
rate their clap.
That was like a 6.2. That was not.
Could you?
That was not our best that we've seen, but
Yeah, that is funny.
it'll
That's
work.
Good. That's good content. We always talk about that would be great content, and never do it.
No.
It'll probably do well on TikTok or something.
Right?
Yeah.
Or would people be like, "Why the hell are they clapping?"
Just
Either way.
clapping.
Yeah, true. So Aaron, you want to introduce our guest today? What do we got? What's the plan for the episode?
Yeah. Is this the official start?
It could be.
Might be.
It's usually when you find leads for guests, I kind of like to hear where your thought process is heading. And when I find a guest, you kind of take a back seat, kind of listen around the perimeter and jump in. And I'd like to do that role today.
Okay.
Because you have your idea of an ideal episode with Lyndon here, and I'm sure it's going to be great.
Lyndon. First of all, are we saying that right?
Yep, Lyndon.
We were joking in the beginning that it's Seth's like Lyndon. And I was like, no, it's actually Lyndon.
Something wacky.
Yeah, something wacky. I've been following Lyndon for a long time now.
I think I have too.
Years. And
Probably.
we've chatted and we've talked about wildlife. We've talked about many different things for many years. I would say 3 to 4 years, I'm guessing, based on, I feel like since I started pretty much, we have been chatting. Now, the reason or my thoughts for having her on the show, there's plenty, but the number one reason, especially lately, we've been talking about like getting back to the roots of photography, getting away from sort of the social media struggle, getting away from the pressure of doing things in a certain way. And one thing I've always noticed about Lyndon from the very beginning, so however long I've been following her, is that she has a constant sort of love for nature and wildlife, birds, and being outside. I don't know if a day has passed where she's not posting some sort of even just quick little thing about being out in nature or taking a ride or seeing a bird that made her day. It's kind of refreshing. And I thought as an episode, it would just be sort of refreshing to get back to where that comes from, what that does for her, where did it begin, what's the origin story of that, and kind of going from there and seeing where the motivation lies to go out. I think it seems like a lot. It seems like she's out all the time and seeing incredible things. And I'm also curious about like the piece of land or the land that you live on. And I mean that in like a big scope, like where you're around, because the variety of animals and wildlife, fauna and flora that come through your feed is impressive on its own. So I will leave it at that. Seth, I don't know if you have any tidbits you want to add.
No, yeah, I think it's a great time. I don't want to take the spotlight here because this is Lynn's episode, but yeah, it's a great time. And we've been talking about getting back to the roots of photography, and there are a lot of listeners who message and are like, I can't relate to the episodes where it's about the social media grind. That being said, most of the episodes with Instagram or something in the title do well. People care about that stuff. I mean, I'm not here to judge whether that's good or bad. I'm just saying there's a lot of people who just want to get better at photography in general and could care less if their account explodes. They just want to become better at what they're doing. So I think, yeah, that passion shines through. I'm looking at your page right now, 1,051 posts. That's a lot. I mean, I've been doing this 10 years and I have like 500. That's my kick in the ass to start taking more pictures or stop being less of a perfectionist. But I wouldn't say that you're doing by any means quantity over quality. You're hitting both, taking both boxes off, quantity and quality. So I guess a good place to start, like you said, Aaron, we haven't done this in a while. Usually we just hop right into deep conversations. But when did the camera first get in your hand, Lyndon?
Well, I honestly will say I grew up where I would sneak off into the little forest behind my house and hang out with birds and frogs and climb trees as something to do as a child. So it's definitely been where nature is like a happy place for me. And I would say I got a camera when I was about, I don't know, when I became an adult, basically. And I started out, honestly, just shooting every sunset and every sunrise I could find. And then slowly I realized, like, oh, there's actually animals underneath that beautiful sun or that beautiful sky that I'm seeing. And that slowly drew me into the wildlife thing. But I will say, like, I don't know if you guys want me to just jump right into.
Keep going.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I will say I had a major death in my life. I lost my brother when I was 25 and he was 14. So,
Oh, jeez.
yeah, in my family, I come from, there's 7 siblings. So it's
Wow.
huge family. Yeah. And we have huge age gaps. So a lot of my life when I was a teenager was being with my younger siblings and helping my mom a lot and doing a lot of like sister mother kind of role. So losing my brother was absolutely devastating and it was the hardest thing I've ever gone through. Don't want anyone to ever go through something like a loss that close to you, you know, like all losses have like a major grieving process to them, but the closer, the harder, and the longer, I think. So for me, I was like grasping for anything to sort of pull me out of my grief or to help me through day to day, because a lot of the times it was just getting through the day and not being horribly sad. And I found photography was the thing for me. I think right after I lost my brother, I didn't jump into it straight away, but I would say within the year, I decided instead of choosing like alcohol or choosing to be mad at everybody or anything like those bad habits that you can get into to try to help yourself, I chose photography. And honestly, like I think wildlife has this way of, and nature, just a way of showing you maybe that, like, I'm not very religious or super spiritual, but I would say I'm more spiritual. And I really think like those days when I'm having the worst day or the hardest day, I would go out and be looking for wildlife. And I would have these absolutely incredible encounters. Like one that comes to mind right after I lost my brother, and I was just searching and searching for some happiness. I had a red-tailed hawk that just, I don't know, it was such a cool moment. It came and was hovering, like weirdly hovering right in front of me and for so long. And like I didn't have great equipment or anything like that, but I would say that's like my spark bird if anyone wants to go get bird nerdy with me. But yeah, the red-tailed hawk, that was just incredible. It just felt like, I don't know, such a special moment for me that really made me happy. And then it was like I just found myself chasing after all that ever since. Like it helps me a lot that way.
That's nice. It's a nice intro into such a tough situation, obviously, and then making some sort of beautiful thing out of it. Now, you mentioned, I just want to ask or clarify, it took about a year to get into photography after that. And you mentioned you didn't want to go down, substance abuse or being angry. Can I ask, did you struggle with that at all to start before you got into? Did you make a switch? Was it just sort of grieving and then you found this sort of outlet, or was it like a life change that you needed to catch yourself before it went too far the other way?
I would just say like I said, I had a camera and I was already sort of interested in the artsiness of it, but I guess this more pulled me into the wildlife aspect or the nature like obsession that I have, because even as I went on, once I had children, is the same thing. Like when I need a break or a mental escape or something like that, that's where I'm just like, I gotta go take pictures of wildlife or get out for a hike or just go for a drive, even clear my head. I found it was like the best place to just reorganize my thoughts and to get myself like in a happier place. So I don't think like I didn't, it's not that I went down the substance abuse path at first, but I've seen that. That's what happened around me, I guess. And I was looking to avoid it and to do something,
Yeah.
like you said, turn it into something positive or beautiful.
Yeah. And you have 2 children?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, a 7 and a 4-year-old right now.
So I could see how that would make you want to just sprint into the woods by yourself.
Am I right?
Sometimes. Yeah. I have one 8-year-old, and sometimes I want to just sprint right into the woods. And sometimes I want to take him, and I think that brings me to my next point: is you often are dragging your young children through nature and giving them those experiences. And I'm curious, how much they like it, how much they're complaining that this is boring, or are they little sidekicks? Like, what's the vibe there for parents that say, like, I have 2 kids, I don't have enough time, I'm too busy with my children? For anyone that needs to be inspired, like, take a look at her page, and she's often bringing them with. She's often finding time, whether it's sunset or sunrise or what have you. How do you manage or juggle those pieces as a mom with 2 kids, 2 young kids?
Yeah, I was hoping we would touch on this too, because I think it's kind of funny how you brought your little sidekick too. But my 7-year-old, he's very interested in nature, and he loves coming on hikes with me and exploring with me, and he helps me spot animals. Like, the first big hike I took them on was out in Kananaskis looking for the pika, whoever wants to say it.
Pika.
And when we got to the top of the hike, my daughter was just like, she was not into it. She was 3 though, and it was pretty difficult. But my 7-year-old, he immediately was helping me spot them. He found the first one, and he was really proud of himself that he got the shot for me. So that was pretty fun. But my 4-year-old, she's the one who's with me all the time because she's not in school. And I just drag her out. I make her come. I hope that is kind of inspiring to other moms out there too, because I feel like a lot of people, like moms and dads, just as soon as you have children or looking towards having children when you're already doing wildlife photography, they think like you're never going to have time, or it's not possible. And it's very possible. And I think it's very good for them, because it's pretty cool to see, like, my daughter, the way that she notices birds, the way that she notices like a plant, or I just think it's really important to teach children, like, to respect nature and to notice those little beautiful things, because I don't know, as corny as it sounds, it's like the little things are the big things in life. So if you're always able to find those little things and find beauty in them, then your day is beautiful. Where if you go about, looking at negative things and seeing negative things, then that's generally how your day goes. So it's a good lesson that way too, I think.
Absolutely. There's this French book about raising children. I think it's called Raising Bébé. But there's this one line in it that I remember. I actually read this, maybe one book about raising kids, and I was like, that's enough. That's good. I'm good. But it said the American way is kids drive the car. The French way is kids are the passenger in the car.
Mm-hmm.
And that one line kind of hit me in terms of my own kid. Like, my kid's initial reaction might be like, I don't want to go on a hike. Like, I want to watch TV, or like, no, I'm not in the mood for that. If you ask, like, hey, do you want to go for a hike? No, but once you're out there, she's blabbing away, talking, looking at things, picking up things. And there's no negative talk about it once you're out there. So it's kind of like, no, like, we are going for a hike, or we're going to drive 3 hours to go look at this, whatever it is. And I think that's suited him well and me well, with someone that has hobbies or things that they want to pursue, not just being like, oh, my son didn't want to, so now I'm stuck inside watching Ninja Turtles, which is pretty awesome, by the way. But I just think that's a great approach. And I know there's a balance, and, not forcing your kids to do everything they hate, but sometimes they just got to kind of go along with it and find the good in it.
Yeah, for sure. And I find, like you said, you just got to bring them, and you just got to drag them out. And as you get there, they're having a great time. And my daughter's still, like, just earlier today, I was asking her if she remembers any of the animals that we see, or what was her favorite one. And she said it was a snowy owl in the frosty tree, and that was like my most memorable snowy owl encounter for the winter. And they were there to see the snowy owl like hop out of the tree and land in the field beside us, and was hunting in the field, and it was just incredible. And both my kids were there to see it, and they both they talk about it a lot. So
Mhm.
I just think that's going to be so neat for them as they grow up and in the future. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that I bring them and show them that stuff.
Ben and I, we used to do we still do every once in a while. We kind of call it back from when he was younger, but like a point game. So when we're driving or we're out, whoever sees the animal first is like, "Oh, I saw those deer. How much are deer worth?" And I'm like, like, see those a lot. So you have 2 points. It's like a scale all the way up to 100. He's
Yeah.
like, what would be 100? I'm like, a bobcat. I've never seen one. So you see a bobcat, you get 100 points. So we play that game too, and kind of keep score, especially for like road trips or whatnot. Like we have this tally thing going on for the entire time of who saw
Yeah.
what, who saw it first. It's a good game. You can use it. That one's
Thanks.
free. That one's free.
Nice. I'm gonna jump in because I've been sitting on
Yeah.
the sidelines, which is nice to do.
Yeah, it's nice, right
And-
there.
Yeah, it's nice
Yeah.
in the peanut gallery. 10 to 15 minutes in here, we haven't talked about social media, engagement, any of that stuff once. And I'm here for it. That's refreshing. Because like I said, there's so many people who are listening who don't care. I know a lot of you listening care. You want the clout. You want the big brand deals. You want the 100,000 followers. You want this to be your full-time income. All that stuff, right? That goes with trying to be a wizard of the algorithm and a wizard of the phone and committed to daily content. And that's great. But I think our conversation so far has been heading in such a genuine direction, a genuine love for the craft. And I'm curious, Lyndon, if it's always going to be about just getting better, just getting outside, if it's just a practice and keeping your head clean. I mean, do you even think about things like, oh, I'd really love to be like an influencer photographer status, or really love like a huge brand deal? And it's okay if you do, but I mean, I guess I'm curious to know, based on what we've talked about so far, what the purpose is. I mean, I know it's a place to keep your mind silent, but is there anything else? Is there an order of priority?
Well, like, I just thought it was funny when you first started talking about how we haven't even talked about it. And I totally am one of those people on Instagram that I see that insights bar and I never, ever, ever click it.
Here we go.
Like, I don't
That's
care at
great.
all. I don't look at it. And I feel like a lot of people who are clicking it all the time, it's just like, why? Because it's not going to make a difference on, besides it's going to like cloud your mind on what, and it's going to make it harder to decide what to post or what to share. Just quit looking at it. Quit clicking how many views you have and quit clicking on your insights. Just,
But I need to know what works. I need to know what gets me more stuff, more
But it-
followers.
and you find out and it doesn't matter. Like, I guess before, like maybe years ago, I did care a bit more, and I had this like, I feel like when you're really getting into wildlife stuff, you just immediately think like you're going to do it as a job and you're going to make a bunch of money off prints and you just got to figure out a way to make it your job. And I've heard other guests on your show even say like, the moment you start making it a job, then it's no longer that pleasurable thing that you had going on. Like, you don't do it for fun anymore. You're doing it to make money, and then there's too much pressure and it's just not fun anymore. And so I think for me, it's really turned into that, especially, I don't know, just the way it's become part of my life. Like, sure, I would love to make money off of my prints that I do, but I don't really want it to be like someone else's guidelines, because then it's not what I want to do. Like, it sounds really simple, but I know for some people it's so complicated. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just try not to look. And as for what it is for me, like what the purpose is, it's my happiness. And it, like, sure, if a lodge or something wanted to buy a whole bunch of my prints, I would just die. Like, I would be so happy. I would love to make a bunch of money off of my prints, but I'm not going to sit there and make it this really complicated, hard thing, because that's just not I just don't want to do it. I guess I'm a little bit different that way. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the problem is often we can think that me being a professional or me being my full making this my full-time income, we set these finish lines, right? Like the winning finish line. That's my goal. And then you kind of disregard the entire practice on the way up. I'm not saying everybody, but that can be the tendency to put blinders on and not really. What you're talking about is an appreciation for the ability to do something and simply enjoy it. And a lot of us have lost that. And I think that's why a lot of us are so miserable, right? Like we think the purpose of doing something is to achieve. And I like to achieve things. I mean, I feel like I've caught myself in this loop, but I think the key is to catch yourself sometimes and bring it back to the start.
Well, it feels good getting a bunch of likes, and it feels good. Like, it's that validation thing you guys have talked about before too, but it's like that can only go so far. And I don't know. I feel like if you really have a passion for wildlife or for landscape or for astro or whatever it is, you just got to keep doing it and not put that extra pressure on yourself. Like, I want to say unless you have to, but like, I'm talking if someone's already got like a big brand deal and they have to put that pressure on themselves. But I'm not in that position, and I really won't take on a job that's going to make me feel, how do I word that? Like, there's so much pressure that I don't even enjoy it anymore.
Right. There's a lot of individuals who would say, like, if you're not getting the brand deal, if you're not making more income year over year, you're not succeeding. But I like to raise the point here based on what you're saying is you're potentially succeeding more than anyone by having fun and enjoying your life every time you go out.
For sure.
And it seems like such a simple concept to you because you're like, well, duh, right? Like, because that's your life. But I feel like a lot of others and potentially some people listening can get into such a convoluted state of mind where it's all squirrely and the priorities are all out of line, and it's,
well, I feel like
it's just like, what am I doing?
Once people sometimes get focusing on the follows and the likes too, then they're total, like when it comes to wildlife specifically, they're totally clouded on their ethics when they're out there. They'll do absolutely anything to get a certain shot, one that they get in their mind or that they've seen be successful before on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're willing to get into wildlife space, or they're doing absolutely anything. They're traveling absolutely everywhere, or like traveling hours and hours and hours just to see this certain owl and get the same photos as everybody. Like, that just drives me crazy. I don't know why you wouldn't want to just work hard, focus in on something in your area, like a certain species, and just try. And then it's so much more rewarding when you do get that photo or find that animal. I just don't understand that, like, chasing for likes or follows.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to get sort of trapped in. If you look at your profile, like there was a mountain bluebird that you posted that did really well, and I think it's easy to be like, okay, how many mountain bluebird photos do I have? Like, how many? Let me go after those because that did really well. But if you also look closer at your profile, you're not afraid to put in a robin. You know, you're not afraid to put in anything that sort of moves you, despite the sort of idea that goes, like I've been there. I've been honest. Like, I like this photo, but I'm not going to post this Canadian geese. Like, we have millions of them. Like, it's not that exciting. I'm not going to do it. So I think staying true to, again, like I like this photo. I like this moment. It was fun. It made me smile. I took the time to edit it. Audience last, right? Like, we talk about that, audience last, in a sense, where if you're a true artist. And I think that there's a difference between like creating a business and creating an artist.
Yeah.
It's very different. Creating content versus creating art. Art might not get a ton of viral likes, but it is true to who you are. Content,
can you be both?
might.
Yeah, I think
and
so.
how can like how can we be both for people who are listening? It's like, I don't really like, I want to make this my business, but it's also my art and I want to succeed. I want to get, I mean, what is the remedy, I guess, so that it's not one or the other.
I think you just keep pushing, you just keep going. And it's like one of those things where you're just going to keep getting better. I guess that's where I'm at too, because I definitely prefer the art and I want to do what I want to do. But maybe somewhere out there, there's a position or a job that is going to come my way because they see I'm persistent, I'm always growing, I'm getting a lot better the more that I do it. I'm talking about anyone could say this about themselves. The more that you practice, the better you're going to get, no matter what it is. Like if you do it every day and someone does it once a week, the person who does it every day is going to get better faster. It's just how practicing a craft works, right? So I feel like you could work your way up to that. But I think the biggest thing is not having it be what you're relying on to make money. If you want to keep it as your art, if you got a job or an opportunity where you could make a bunch of money on it, then that's absolutely awesome and great. Like I would love it. But I do think it's kind of hard because then once again, it could just slowly turn into something that it's too stressful and you don't like it. Right. So.
Yeah.
I like your question. She said both. I'm going to say no, you can't. Okay. And then I want to hear your answer. Not to argue with you, Lyndon. We just met.
Oh, yeah.
This is our first fight. But
that is something you would say.
I think you could do both halfway. I mean, you can do both, but something's got to give. And if you're making content, I always think of this joke of like the content creator that misses the bear cub coming out of the thing because they're trying to make a funny video or like a slow motion lift of their lens and the bear's there and shit, they missed the photo. Like, I really think if you're spending time making content that goes well, you're not spending time doing your art. And you could do it a little bit and you can divide your time and split your time, but I just don't think it's going to go through. And talking to Nooch 10, Michael Nucciarino the other day, we're talking about this exact topic. And I said, it's like a music artist. Like we love a musical artist for their music, right? If they started putting content on social media, like, hey, this is how you do a blues scale, and like valuable information, their media might grow, their media account might grow, and their content might do better versus putting on like, this is a song I wrote, it's a minute long. God forbid you have a minute attention span and you watch this. It's not going to do well, but that's the artist that we are looking for. So it's kind of like, which lane are you going to go in? Do you want a huge social media account, or do you want to stay true to your artist and grow really slowly? But I think you do grow and you stay true to who you are. It's not that fast boom, but I think you grow. And I would go to as far, and I know this isn't true for everyone. The top echelon photographers have tons and tons of followers, but I think they got them a long time ago. I think this day and age, if you're having an epic rise in following, I think I'm going to say it, you're less of a photographer.
You're like compromising some parts of yourself. Yeah.
You are. You're not as good as you could be because there's only so
purely
much time.
Photography, you mean?
Or video or whatever your art is. Like if you're deciding I want to grow in a certain way, exponentially, virally, I think there's a certain kind of content that does really well. I don't know if great photos on their own, time and time again, great photos is going to create viral growth at this stage, unless you're doing the content thing to promote it. But if you're doing the content thing to promote it, you're spending a lot of time doing that and not on your craft.
So if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, unwind it, unravel it.
Because I think I disagree with you slightly.
Good. So we have a maybe, a no, and
a little mixing bowl. So... And then we'll get back to, because we said this episode isn't about social media, but I guess it really isn't here. This is a different kind of concept. We want to take a quick pause and let you know that we're running a giveaway for a $350 photo print voucher courtesy of Whitewall, one of our sponsors. It's your chance to have your own artwork printed for free on one of Whitewall's substrate options, including metal, acrylic, canvas, and more. All you have to do is head to our Instagram and share the post we made about the giveaway to your story and submit your email address for our monthly newsletter subscription. Don't worry, we are not selling your email address. It's solely for our monthly newsletter where you can receive more photographer mindset content. You also get bonus entries for every friend you tag in the comments of that Instagram post up to a max of 10 people. Do these two things and you'll be entered to win this $350 photo print voucher from Whitewall so that you can epically print your own photography. Links to our Instagram and the newsletter subscription are in the episode description. This giveaway is only available for US listeners and it's open from now until July 1st, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be notifying the winner via email and we'll also edit the Instagram post to let you know who won. Go into the contest and good luck. If I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that technically speaking, you can't be as good at photography, as good as possible if you're sacrificing the time you could be spending shooting, creating content to go viral.
Yes.
That's exactly what you're saying.
I think so.
Well, I'm thinking of like, maybe it's different based on the context, but let's say, because there's a ton of musicians, let's say on Instagram, who are guitar players who are incredible. You send me those reels all the time, or Nooch does in our group chat.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the way the angle they film it, or the cuts they make, or the personality before they get into the song is very good from a content perspective, but then you're still enjoying the music they've written. And I feel like there are content creators for sure that put that first and foremost in the photography, videography genre. And that, of course, can be turned into a game where it's just, well, this did well. We've talked about it. This did well, so I'm going to make content like that. And then it's not necessarily the art you want to make. But then there's this really small piece of the pie. And you've figured this out sort of when you made your comedy skits, where you got to think, this is going to perform really well, and I get to share my photography. Like, there's a very small, finite way, and it's very, very, very tiny way. And I think this is why you don't see it too often, because it's very difficult to do, to be able to cohesively blend the two. But I think the important part is people in that very, very tiny sliver of the pie want to be content creators because they like it, as opposed to feeling like it's something they should do. Yeah. Does that make sense?
I would say I'm kind of like that. I enjoy, I really enjoy sharing stories, and I enjoy making the little reels. Some of them are like goofy. Some of them are just a video of wildlife. Some of them are lip syncing. Like, I know it's like all over the place, but I just do whatever I want to do on there, and sometimes it does well and sometimes it doesn't.
Right. So what I'm saying is, you don't have the intent, like, this is the thought that never arises. This is great this will be great content. This will perform well. It's, I want to make this is me, and it happens to do well.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't disagree that balance is probably the best way to conquer the game that there is. If you're just sticking to, in this day and age, posting a photo every couple of days, you're probably not going to see as much growth as you could. People aren't going to see your work, no matter how good it is. Yeah. So there is a rob Peter to pay Paul sort of thing that's going on here, where you got to just make a little bit potentially of that sort of sacrifice. But to your point, where I said I'm going to show my art and do this content, that video taking took hours and hours and hours of figuring it out, editing, going to do it, bringing it back, where I was not waiting in the bush for an awesome moment to happen.
Correct.
And then finiting those skills and making those skills any better. So your point about the guitarists, yeah, they're great, but I could argue they're not practicing guitar. So they're doing content in those hours. Whatever that video took to do, it takes hours. It's a sacrifice to build the machine, which is like, I want to get people at my live show, so maybe I have to sacrifice some practice to do this content. Right. And then yeah, of course. But I think the question being, do both? I don't know if that was the original question, or does it hurt one another? I think in the purest form, yes.
Yeah, I guess in theory you could say it's an opportunity cost for anything, right?
Right.
But we can talk about this too, just to come back, just to come full circle here in this conversation. You mentioned the term "the game." I mean, I've said this before, and maybe I haven't said it, but what is the game? If you really continue to fast forward to the next step of everything everybody does, it's I'll get 100,000 followers, I'll get a brand deal, I'll be full-time, whatever path you want to choose. And then I'll be happy. So what is the point if you're someone like Lyndon who's going out every day and genuinely enjoying life and happy with what they're doing? Yeah. Right? Like that's the circle. Like we're all trying to get to happiness. So if you're already there, why, like, what is the point of playing said game?
Yeah, exactly. That is where I'm at. Exactly. It's just like it's already really fun and enjoyable for me. So to gain followers is a bonus. To have people love my stuff is a bonus. All that stuff is just kind of like, it adds to it. It's really nice and everything, and it like gives you confidence, and it's like it kind of encourages you more. But it's not like where you're just chasing, always looking at, yeah.
Right. So what you're talking about is more isn't better than enough.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of us need to hear that.
Yeah.
More is not better than enough.
Yeah, 'cause to your point, I don't know, like it's a brilliant game because it never ends. If you have 1 million followers, you could get 2 million.
It never ends.
It never ends.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, unless the happiness and fun comes from hitting those things. It really comes down to don't play the same game that everybody else is, because everybody's version of fun and happiness is different.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Yeah.
And I think this is where the comparison game gets us into trouble, especially you see, oh, so-and-so follower with 141,000 followers, they're traveling the world, they look like they're having fun. Maybe that's how I can find my happiness, and I do the same thing, and you don't figure it out on your own, or you don't realize that person has probably miserable moments too. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. It's hard to dissociate, and I'm curious, maybe we can get into this. Was there something maybe in your upbringing? You said you spent a lot of time out in nature. I don't think that's a coincidence with your mindset towards this. I think back to our earlier conversation, I don't have kids, but if I did, I would be sure as hell to be really involving them in nature and realizing that they're a participant in this grand system that was designed by God knows what. But how are you keeping your head on straight? Like, what do you attribute that to when so many people are poisoned and sucked into this crazy machine?
I would say, like, back when I was growing up, my mom was a big influence for that, because we would go on nature walks, and she just, like, one of the things we would do is in the fall was to collect the most beautiful leaves we could find. And some of them were like bigger than our face, and just like realizing how cool and neat that was to see. And then like she was really good about pointing out, oh, look at the beautiful sky. And it's like I said, if you're finding all these little, like she taught me to look for the little happiness, and that just honestly, like, it's so simple. It's like find the little things in your day or out in front of you that make you happy or that are beautiful about the world, and just focus on that. And your day is going to go a lot better. It's so simple. Like, you just have to find, and some days, sure, I don't feel like doing that, and I can have my slump days too, but I find that's with wildlife photography especially. There's just so many cool birds and animals out there that are just like right in our backyard. You just have to literally like go for a drive and go look. I don't know how many people come to me and they're like, I didn't know we had moose around. And I'm like, I can find them in 2 seconds. You just have to go look for them and go be looking for that, instead of assuming it's not there and just not ever trying. I don't know.
I guess the tricky part is if you attribute a lot of your outlook and your relationship, your positive relationship with social media, to when you were a child, I'm thinking about listeners who didn't have maybe that parental bond or that time spent like you did. And I empathize with them. Maybe it is difficult to notice or appreciate the very tiny things.
Yeah.
Right? I mean we're bombarded with get the Crest toothpaste, your teeth are whiter than everybody else's. Get the Lamborghini so your neighbor is jealous of you. I mean, like, how do people who, the majority of civilized people, how do we get out of the, like, how do we begin to be okay and satisfied with less? Like, we're not, I guess you could say we're trying to solve the world's problems here, but I mean, I feel like it's potentially easier for you to have that mentality because you've grown up with it. Or is that unfair? Have you worked at that?
I mean, like, I wasn't always into photography and stuff like that. Like I said, it was something that I chose to lean into when I was going through major grief in my life,
Right.
and it pulled me out of it. But I will say I agree with you. It's like I'm very lucky with my upbringing to even have had that. Like, I wasn't fighting for anything. I was just, it was a happy upbringing, where for some people
Yeah.
it can be really difficult, but also just go ahead and lean on, like, take this advice, go out there and lean on nature and lean on the beauty that's around you, because it really is not hard to find. Like, I know you
Right.
say, like, what about people who don't think they can find it? I'm telling you, like, it's there. You just have to go look at the wildflowers and just appreciate it. And then you did that instead of looking at the rainy sky above you and being
Mhm.
mad that it's about to rain. Like, it's sort of, you got to choose your mindset too.
Right. So it sounds, is it fair to say your childhood, adolescence was filled with love from family? Like it
Yeah.
was, right. So I mean, I guess the other piece of advice would be for the person you just described is give love, like give that appreciation to other people and other things.
Yeah.
You get when you give, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I think too, you have to look around. It's tough. Again, if you're not used to it, everything is normal at this point. Having the news station on, getting 100 bad stories in the morning before you even have your coffee. If it's just habit, and like that sort of those habits that create a fear cycle and create tons of input, scrolling through your phone and seeing everyone else's photos and then saying like, oh, I'm not going to post mine because, I got a black bear today, but I just saw 20 grizzly bears and they're so much better than mine. So what's the point? Instead of turning some of those inputs off, turn the news off, turn the phone off, go out to nature, be excited about the robin or the squirrel having a cool moment, and like go edit those photos and keep them. And if that brings you joy, do it and throw it out there without sort of so much input coming in that makes you compare, that makes you afraid, that makes you nervous, that makes you anxious. Like all those things. Seth, you touched on marketing. It's all about lack, right? It's all about
Right.
you could be prettier, you could be younger, you could be thinner, you could be stronger, you could be taller. It's like
For a price.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those things have no end also, just like the followers.
Yeah.
I mean, we're never going to be younger than we are right now. So it doesn't matter what we keep trying to do, age wins, but that's what marketing's about. That's what capitalism seems to be about. You turn on the anything, any sporting event, anything, and every commercial is about, take this pill to cover up this symptom, or you could be prettier, thinner, faster, younger, whatever it is, So turning off some of those inputs, I think, can create the space to be like, oh, this is enjoyable. This day was enjoyable. This day was peaceful. Peaceful is a really underrated feeling, I think, in anything. People want like excitement and their nervous system going, but peace is like, if you can get to a peaceful place, like that's what creates that like small smile where you're like, this is nice, And I think that's an underrated sort of feeling.
Just being mellow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even mellow, just like
at peace with what's
yeah.
around you.
everyone knows this feeling. You're really sick with the flu, and that first day you feel better. Like, how good is life
Nice cold
when
glass of water. I'm really yeah.
yeah, how good is life when you can get out of bed and go for a run or like move around, or an injury starts to get better? That's an automatic boost. And that's nothing extra. That's just like it was taken away
Yeah.
for a minute. And now you have like your basics back. You have your basic ability to function back. And it's, man, I mean, nothing else puts me in a better mood than like the getting through a 3-day sickness where you're like, oh, I'm back. I'm going back to work. Thank God I could go to work. Like, and normally you go to work and you're like, oh, I can't wait to go home. Like it's a reset sometimes. And I think
Yeah.
any sort of reset can just do wonders for like your perception of
Well, that's
what's going
another
on.
sort of mindset thing too. I think like one of the things that I find myself doing is I'm really thankful for just being able to get out, for my legs that work and allow me to hike. Like I purposely will say to myself that I'm so thankful that I can run right now, like that my body's able to let me hike or to let me go chasing wildlife, or and it's like a mindset thing. And then I just think that it continues to bring you positivity if you keep thinking that way too.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah. Again, what you're talking about is what I have is enough. More is a bonus.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's a hard place to get to. It's just simple and easy are two different things.
I appreciate hearing that. I've never heard that it was like a hard mindset to get to before.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm I'm trying to think of everyone possible who is listening. For some, I'm sure it's a spectrum. Other people are like, totally get it. Yeah, that's how I live my life. And others are probably like, what? I can't imagine being happy without achieving things or without, accomplishment, et cetera, without having a $5,000 watch. It's a large spectrum, right? So I think it is hard in these episodes to try and speak to everyone. But I like episodes like this where maybe there's a cluster of people who are like, you know what, I needed that.
Mhm.
I needed to hear that today. And often people write in all the time. They say, I heard this exactly. The timing was so weird. And I always say, no, it wasn't. It really wasn't. Like you notice what you go looking for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And even with that mindset, just going to what Aaron was talking about, like my area, I will say that's been another mindset thing. I live in such a weird area for wildlife where people don't even think to come here. Like I'm very rural Alberta. I live in a tiny town and it's like flat around me is what people think. But just going out and exploring and thinking like, no, there's more to it. You find there's just these incredible badlands areas. There's a huge abundance of wildlife and migratory birds. And it's the most exciting piece of land that, that's why I love to share in my stories too. I get a lot of messages from people just saying like, thank you for showing the beauty in the world. And thank you for showing me like how beautiful this area is. And just, it's that sort of thing is what really makes me happy and what kind of validates stuff for me too. I love to share that with people and show it off, but it's such a unique area. And yeah, I don't know. It's been a mindset shift for me though, because I always thought I have to go to the mountains. I have to go get the bears. I have to go find moose there. That's the only place I'm ever going to see moose. And then lo and behold, it's like 2 minutes out of my town, I go driving and there's a giant bull moose just running by. Then I realize my area is like huge for moose, and I go to the mountains and I can't even find one moose because there's so many trees and they hide in the mountains. So it's like,
Right.
Right.
I'm glad that I sort of noticed that and realized that about my own area.
It's really
Yeah.
true. And a similar story is being in Connecticut. Very similar, like that feeling of like, oh, we're not in Colorado, Wyoming,
Yeah.
like we're not out west. It's so easy. And I think wildlife out east is a different sort of sport. And maybe I'm completely wrong, but it just has like a different flavor to it. You don't have those huge pockets of like the Tetons or Yellowstone.
Yeah.
You have like it's kind of like luck, or you know your little spot. But something that really hit me was sort of like this I don't know, this down mindset of like I have to travel to go get wildlife. And I put a trail cam in my backyard on one lone tree that looks towards the woods. And in like a week, I was going through, there were 2 coyotes, a fox and a family went through, raccoon, a possum, like almost everything you could possibly have. And that's just my backyard where I've never gone and sit to take photos. And it just kind of hit me as like, okay, it's not about the place. It's about the time and the effort and the time learning an environment, whether it's a thumbprint in your backyard, whether there's little birds, frogs, anything, snakes, lizard, like whatever there is behind you. I guarantee if you have a little piece of land, a little piece of wooded area that you can get to, there is a whole small environment of animals and things that you can sit and take really amazing photos of. It doesn't have to be the grizzly bear that's growling at you 10 feet away in Alaska.
With 40
Seth,
other people, right?
Yeah, with 40 other people. We'll be there and we'll enjoy it. But I'm just saying those trips are wonderful, but there's a lot of other things that you can go on.
Right.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I would love to go take pictures of bears in Alaska. It's not like I don't want to. It's just you got to realize, like, work with what you have around you and try to really appreciate what's right around you and close to home and sort of show that off. And people love it. They think it's really cool and it's sort of like unique instead of always seeing the same, like those. I think it's a funny thing with wildlife photographers. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but it seems like when you first start, you're like, I got to get the big mammals, the bears, the cats, the moose, the deer and all that. And then the longer you go, you're kind of like, I don't know. I think I just switched to birds partially because it's like you can only take, like, don't get me wrong, I take pictures of moose all the time, but it seems like you can only get so many different scenes with them and they all kind of look the same. Then you realize, like, wow, birds are really cool and each one is unique and has its own story and reason for existing and stuff like that. And you can just, it's really fun. I love wildlife photography for that.
I'm sitting here thinking too, I mean, what we're talking about is being an expert in your area geographically, but also I wanted to bring this up because we're talking about wildlife a lot. If there's portrait photographers listening or car photographers or sports or even landscape, I mean, be an expert in your local region. You can be an expert. If you're in a cornfield in Illinois, you got cornfields for miles and miles. I mean, you got some awesome potential to capture some sweet storms.
Yeah.
Or, if we're talking about wildlife, the nuanced wildlife of that area. If you're in another place, maybe there's a certain scene, maybe you're by the coast in California. Maybe you can niche down and have that backdrop for all the cars you take rolling shots of. I mean, there's so many different ways to kind of just be an expert in your area.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can get spoiled by your area. And I'm spoiled by New England fall. You know, like growing up, I was like, this is annoying. Like everyone's going to look at leaves. What the hell are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? Traffic for leaves? Yeah. And then you like, oh, wait a minute. This is sought after and the whole world wants to see it. Okay. That's interesting. I have a new perspective. And I think it's the same thing with, like, I remember going out west and seeing magpies for the first time and taking photos of like how cool they were and like how like bossy and weird and angry they were, and people are like, those things suck, like don't even bother. And I'm like, no, like I've never seen one, like it's awesome. Or like mountain jays or like anything like that that we don't have over here. So the robin or the cardinal might be a bird that someone in, I don't know where, Africa might not ever have seen and be like, whoa, a fully red cardinal. I got to check my cardinal facts. I don't know where they all live, but you get my point, is that like what we think is like an ordinary thing, a gray squirrel might be like to someone else, like, holy, like that is what is that animal? That's really cool. I want to check this out a little bit further.
Oh, Instagram sometimes too. I think you have people from all over the world following you. So yeah, you get those messages like, I've never seen that before. This is so interesting. And you're like, oh, really? Well, it's in my backyard.
I commented that on your yellow-headed blackbirds post. I said, I have never seen these birds before. And then I went to Saskatchewan. I was there last week
Yeah.
or 2 weeks ago, and I see yellow-headed blackbirds, and I was freaking out. I was like, Haley, look at those birds. And she missed them. And then I saw pronghorns, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
I was freaking out. And then they're everywhere.
I was going to ask you how that was in Saskatchewan. You had to
It was awesome. I'm still storying them now because I had no service, and I also like people to think that I'm still there so that they don't bother me. No, I'm just kidding. I delay rollout. I'm delayed in rolling out stories.
Yeah.
Because I want to share. I want to share, but I don't want it to take away from the moment. So I always delay stories on trips.
Yeah, that's got to be something I'm bad for sure. I'm excited to share.
Which is good. I just know myself that something on the home feed will be really interesting and grab my attention after I post the story. And it's just like, better not, you know?
Yeah.
And I wanted
Better
to
not.
say, we're talking about like being spoiled by your area and just the ordinary things. I think with, like, of course, my genre is wildlife photography, but I think a lot of people don't realize how fun it can be to take those ordinary ones and then try to do something different or unique or practice your craft on like mule deer, for example. I can take pictures of them all the time and just constantly try to get something a little bit different. And eventually I know it's going to be like a really interesting photo, not just a deer, but that can really help you master your craft. Where then when you do find a bobcat, you're able to get the eye and focus right away, or you're able to jump into action right away because you've been practicing on other animals so much that you see all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've always said wildlife, or maybe any genre, but wildlife especially, takes multiples of three, but it might take a few times in each stage to get there. So number one, you have to like know an animal is there, right? Like you have to find an area and then be like, oh, there, I just saw a coyote cross. So they're here. I didn't get a photo. And then number two is like try to get there at the right time and get that photo. And then number three, the third stage, and two might take a week, you know, to get that first photo. Then stage three is like, I want to really challenge myself. Where's the sunset? There's this log crossing the bridge right here. I've seen him cross it a few times. This would be perfect at sunset. I'm going to set up for this one shot. And that might take forever. It might never happen, but like challenging yourself to create the photo. I think that's tough in wildlife, to actually create a composition.
Sure.
And you can do that much easier in your backyard with common animals that you see most of the time. You know, you can set things up and find patterns and see patterns. Animals really follow patterns. And if you pay attention and if you're out there, you can see a lot of those things unfold and get an idea.
Yeah.
Very well said.
I got to be honest right now, and this is going to be great content. I have a swarm of flying ants that just came in and is like hovering around this light the entire episode. You would not know because my mindset is just so calm and cool, but I am freaking out inside because they're crawling all over my glass right now. Let me hold this up. Can you see it? See that little guy?
Yeah.
It's on top.
Ugh.
You're not a bug guy, huh?
Well, it's fine, but there's like, I don't know where they came from, and they're all around. And I'm like getting itchy.
Get the macro
Right.
out. Get something.
I digress.
Yeah, get the macro out.
Yeah.
I always love the direction episodes go. I have no idea where we're going. Talked about a lot of cool stuff today, and then flying ants.
Yeah.
They're ruining it. They're ruining it for me. Okay, I will maintain. I just had to let that out and understand. I don't know if things are on the lens or like flying through, like they're on my face. So
You're good.
I don't want to act like a psychopath. Just no reaction to ants
They're
everywhere.
on your eyeball. You're just don't even break. Don't even break
Don't
your
break.
thought.
Don't break thought. No. But
man.
yeah. So
You're funny.
That's my disclaimer.
Good stuff. Well,
today's episode.
people would have had to have gotten through 58 minutes or however long of the YouTube before you even let them know that was the case. So people could think you're an absolute psychopath for that long if you have
That's
them on
true.
your face and eye and you're just not even twitching.
Yep. Well, That's why you got to listen to the end.
That's why you got to subscribe to the YouTube so you can see bugs on Aaron's face potentially. No promises.
Yeah. Zoom
Shameless
in.
plug.
4K.
Link in the episode description.
4K.
I got nothing else. Do you guys have any things you want to touch on?
We're going to end on the flying ants.
Yeah, just to embarrass you. No.
Yeah.
Why don't we wrap up some content or some concluding thoughts?
Concluding thoughts. We like to ask this question, and I think it's a good way to end an episode, especially after an annoying break by me that kind of ruined the flow. But to get back to it, if you were to tell your younger self any sort of advice or tips getting into photography, I think I know where this is going to go, because you, to me, have lived that in terms of your entire tenure of photography. But I would like to hear, maybe you've thought of this before. Maybe there's some sort of thing that you would tell your younger self or tell a younger photographer that's starting up, getting into the game, whether it's wildlife or anything else. What would you say to yourself when you're just starting out?
I guess one of the biggest things I learned was that, like, it's you got to practice a lot to get to where you want to be. Like, it's not just photography, especially. A lot of people just think you got to buy a camera and just go shoot with it, which I do think is the first step to figuring out what kind of camera you need, what kind of photography you're going to be into. Like, I really tell people, go and shoot everything. Like, take pictures of people, take pictures of landscapes, cars, wildlife, like go to the zoo, just flowers, everything. Just see what you're actually really into and what pulls your passion, and then go with that. Because even me, like, for a while I was doing portrait photography, and it was a lot just like to bring in an income, because people will easily pay for anyone to take their portrait. You can do that from the lowest level to the highest level, depending what you charge, and people will hire you. But to be really good at it and to, end up being able to charge more or to sell your prints for more or whatever it may be, you got to get out there and shoot and practice and just you just have to keep going. I hear some photographers say, like, oh, I'm just not happy with any of my shots. And I just want to say, keep shooting then. Like, go out and keep going until you are happy, because eventually you're going to figure out what you did wrong in this area and what you need to fix in that area. And I love what you were saying too about how it's like in threes, because that's so true. And the third option, like you said, can maybe never come true or can take years. And so when people ask me for my special little spots where I found all the snowy owls this winter, and I just cringe, because I'm like, that took me like 6 years to figure out that certain spot, and it was like the only one that had snowy owls in my area, and I did not want to share it. So
right, do your own homework.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work too. I would tell my younger self, like, you gotta put in the time and the work to figure anything out too. So you gotta be really into it and be dedicated to. But at the same time, to get anywhere, for me, it's just, I'm just happy, and I really like getting better at my craft. So
yeah, practice. We say it all the time.
Also, I think photography is a really good hobby or passion or job for anyone to get into, because it's just always about looking for beauty in whatever it is, like landscape, people, wildlife. You're just constantly on the search for beauty. And I think that's like, what kind of other hobby is there like that? Like, photography is one on its own that way. So I think I encourage anyone to grab a camera and get out there and shoot everything. And it can really inspire you to do cool things. Like, even a couple years ago, I did my first solo camping trip, and I never would have done that if I wasn't I really wanted to find the great gray owls, and I had to go. No one is into it really in my life, and just going for it was like exciting, and it was rewarding, and I'm really proud of myself. And that's like, always a boost that way. So photography did that for me, not.
Love that.
Yeah.
Well said. Lyndon, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully it was good. And
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. It's definitely a breath of fresh air, I think. And that's kind of what we've been touching on, and felt like you were a great guest to fit into that and talk about it a little bit deeper. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Great.
All right. Thanks both for your time. Till next time.
Take care.
See ya.